Hey everyone, welcome back to another BRAP rant, a very impromptu BRAP rant again, back-to-back days. You know what? It's my birthday today, so I figured, what the heck? I'm going to do a lunchtime birthday rant because we're not doing our regular scheduled Wednesday night show at 9 p.m. tonight because I'll be celebrating my birthday. So thank you everyone for coming out and hanging out with me again this afternoon. Again, very impromptu rant. I think I put up the tweet, the link, about an hour ago. So very impromptu. So appreciate everyone dropping by or stopping by and hanging out with me this afternoon. And I see I want to see a couple of the usual suspects here in the live chat. Big shout out to Nate All Day, Digital 84, Def Lloyd. Ava says happy birthday. Thank you for that, Evis. And Devil Shooter 126 says, hey, but do me a quick favor, retweet the link. I'm going to drop the link here in the live chat. If you could do me a solid and do that. Gonna actually, with this rant, I do have some updates on some things that drink responsibly. Striker X31 says, yes, I will drink responsibly this evening. But I do want to touch upon, or just quick update on one of the topics I discussed yesterday, which was the Nintendo Switch in 2024. We do have some updates regarding that. Some new information has just come out from a analyst in Japan, Tokyo-based game industry consultancy firm, I should say, who provided some additional insight into the likelihood of the Switch releasing in 2024. So we'll talk about that. Also going to add a sports twist to this rant because this past weekend, Panthers owner David Tepper decided to conduct himself in a very inappropriate way and manner. And really, I got to be honest with you, I'm really surprised that by how the NFL handled this. Actually, not surprised as much as I'm just disappointed, disgusted in his behavior. This is a total lack of respect to fans, to the NFL, to himself personally. I mean, this individual's a billionaire, and he's going to decide, and he's going to behave this way because he's frustrated because his team lost. That's not a way to conduct yourself as an owner, as an individual, as a representative of the NFL. The NFL needs to do better. They just do. And I'll talk about that here in just a second. But thank you, Blue Arrow. Blue Arrow says happy birthday. And we're going to talk about a new Xbox in 2026. Somebody asked that question in the live chat yesterday, and I have some thoughts. I was talking to Game Logic and was listening to the recent Digital Foundry podcast where they talked about an Xbox console in 2026. I was trying to get Logic on the lunchtime rant. He couldn't join us this afternoon, but I want to talk about that kind of because to me it just doesn't make sense that they would release a 2026 console. Given that I just don't think that developers are necessarily going to take advantage of the power of that console. And maybe Microsoft will to an extent, but we know that they're going to be developing content that's that can be played across all platforms, devices. But we'll talk about that here in just a sec. Devil Shooter 126 says one Xbox, go PC. Hey, I've been saying that, Devil Shooter, for quite some time now. If you're in the Xbox ecosystem, the best way to play Xbox is through is to engage in the Xbox ecosystem. Is Game Pass. Or not Game Pass, I'm sorry, PC. I don't know why I said Game Pass. Give me a sec here. I'm going to retweet the link out here. And speaking of Game Pass, Microsoft has released the Game Pass games that are coming this month. We have Assassin's Creed Valhalla, which is coming out. Close to the Sun, Figment, Resident Evil 2, Super Mega Baseball 4, Those Who Remain, We Happy Few, and Hell Let Loose. So those are the games that will be coming out to Game Pass this month. And Some of those games are PC only. I'm sorry, no, I should say PC only. I take that back. All these games are cloud, console, and PC. Resident Evil 2 cloud saves great. Yes, We Happy Few is technically first party now. I mean, they own the studio. Yeah, I saw some chatter, some dialogue on Twitter earlier today, this morning, about what constitutes first party. I saw that. It's kind of interesting. BRAP, why do you think PS5 needs PS5 Pro? It's a great question, Ricardo. I think that there's a segment of the player base that wants a iterative console, a new, mid-gen refresh. I think that was proven last year. And I suspect that doing so will probably drive down the price of the PlayStation 5 console, which could motivate people who are on the PlayStation 4 to make that jump as well, and may motivate others to pick up a PlayStation 5 who haven't done so already. I mean, you got to remember when the PlayStation 4 Pro launched, I believe it was in 2016, it was launching at $399, which the PlayStation 4 had originally launched at, and then Sony had actually reduced the price of the PlayStation 4 to $299. So I think that's a potential knock-on effect of releasing a PlayStation 5 Pro console. I would imagine that Sony would probably do the same thing in releasing the PlayStation 5 Pro, let's say $500. If we go by what they did with the PlayStation 4 Pro and launching it at the launch price of the PlayStation 4 at $399, and then reducing the cost of the PlayStation 4 base console to $299, assuming they do the same here. Again, I think the knock-on effect is now you make the PlayStation 5 even more attractive to those individuals, I say more casual consumers who haven't made that leap just yet, or PlayStation 4 platform owners who haven't bought into a PlayStation 5 just yet. Yeah, Christopher, I'm not sure what you mean, because I'm not sure what PC ports would have to do, or not having PC ports like Xbox. What has to do with the PS5 Pro? Am I missing something here? Not sure what that has to do with that, but all right. If you haven't seen the video out here, there is a video of NFL owner, the owner of the Carolina Panthers, at the Jacksonville Jaguars game. It was Jacksonville playing the Panthers this past Sunday in Jacksonville, in a luxury box. You could see David Tepper, who's the owner of the Panthers. He threw a drink at a Jacksonville Jaguars fan on Sunday, and there's a video of this, by the way, a video. You could see him tosses his drink, and by the way, from just doing some quick research, some Google searches, throwing a drink at somebody in some instances can be considered misdemeanor assault. And so you have this billionaire owner of the throw a drink. Throw his drink. I mean, at a fate. Talk about just disrespectful. Talk about disrespectful. Throwing a drink on someone. Philadelphia Eagles center Jason Kelce had a lot to say about this. He slammed the owner's decisions, or the owner's actions. Said it was disrespectful. Said throwing a drink or spitting on someone, I'd rather you punch me in the face. I mean, this is just I can't. I don't recall seeing a time where I've seen an owner of an NFL football team throw a drink at fans. I mean, I don't disagree with Jason Kelsey. It is just beyond disrespectful. And as I said earlier, it could be considered misdemeanor assault. I Googled, does throwing a drink constitute assault? And the search, it said, yeah, in some instances, it actually can, misdemeanor assault. You know, it's almost like you have this billionaire looking down at the fans, you know, upset, and I don't know what led to him throwing a drink, and whatever it did. Let's say the fan is heckling. Let's say the fan is heckling David Tepper. That doesn't give David Tepper the right to throw a drink on someone. Arrogant, disrespectful. It's disrespectful to the fans. Disrespectful to the sport of football. Makes the ownership look bad in Carolina. So I don't know if anyone, hey, Ice Queen Gaming, I don't know if anyone saw this video, but it is, it's embarrassing. It's embarrassing. Hey, Spaghetti says it was shameful for him and the NFL should take some type of action. Well, Spaghetti, they have, and this is what's bad on the NFL's part, by the way. Like this guy should be suspended. Okay. And if I'm that fan that got the drink thrown on, I may even look at what potential charges could be brought against the owner. Hold him accountable. This is not behavior that's becoming of anyone at a football game. No one should be throwing it. And this is an NFL owner. He is a representative of the NFL, an ambassador of the NFL. Ice Cream Game says no one should throw a drink at anyone. It's appalling behavior. It's appalling behavior. So here's how the NFL responds to David Tepper. And David Tepper's response to his behavior is just lacks accountability. Devil Shooter says, I was the guy who would press charges. That's what I'm saying. Like, you know, he should look into pressing charges because, again, my understanding is that this could be considered a form of misdemeanor assault, throwing a drink at someone. So here's how the NFL responds. And this is just embarrassing on the NFL's part. I'm shocked by this. He's okay. I'll give you a little bit of background of David Tepper. He's the second richest owner in the NFL. He has a net worth of about $20.6 billion. Okay. Here's what the NFL does. Okay. On Tuesday, the NFL fined David Tepper $300,000 by what the NFL called unacceptable conduct. NFL, that is a joke. Roger Goodell, that is a joke. $300,000 is less than 1% of David Tepper's net worth. This is chump change to him. Now we've had instances, examples of other NFL owners behaving poorly towards fans in the past. If those remember, in 2009, Tennessee Titans owner Bud Adams also was fined $250,000 for making an obscene gesture to Buffalo Bills fans while they were celebrating a victory. I believe he gave him the middle finger, if I remember But this is a joke. This is a joke slap on the hand by the NFL. What the NFL should have done is suspend David Tepper. Suspend him. The United States, the NFL belongs to the owners. That's why they went so light. It's like the Snyder situation. The NFL will protect their owners. Yeah, and I don't disagree. The NFL will protect their owners, but the NFL needs to, and the owners need to do a better job at managing this kind of behavior. It looks very poorly on the NFL. Looks very poor on the owners. And I always thought the owners got to a point with Dan Snyder. They got tired of Snyder because he was going to impact their ability to make money. He already was. Snyder couldn't get either a DC, Maryland, or Virginia. Couldn't get them to agree to build a stadium. That's a problem for the NFL and the owners. The new stadiums are money for them. Here's what's unfortunate is David Tepper, instead of just acknowledging his behavior and being sincere about an apology, he didn't even offer an apology. It's basically an excuse. He basically says, hey, you know what? He's passionate about his team. He regrets his behavior. And then he says, I should have let the NFL stadium security handle any issues that arose. I respect the NFL's code of conduct, except the league's discipline for my behavior. But nowhere did he did not even apologize to the fan he threw a drink on, which is telling. Just telling. He goes out here, throws a drink at someone, wipes his hands clean, gets a slap on the hand, doesn't even have the decency to apologize. That's a problem. And his response is, frankly, a joke. He didn't even apologize. I'm going to read his full quote here. I am deeply passionate about this team and regret my behavior on Sunday. I should have let NFL stadium security handle any issues that arose. I respect the NFL's code of conduct, except the league's disciplinary for my behavior. Even if he's saying, I mean, like, you're the owner of the NFL. You can't let look, I don't care if the fan in Jacksonville was calling him every name under the sun, cursing him out, telling him his team sucks, whatever. That doesn't excuse his behavior or him throwing a drink at someone. D-Nice, I agree with D-Nice here. D-Nice says these people are used to never having to apologize. I don't disagree. They have a lot of money. They're used to people. I heard Mike Florio's discussing this issue this morning, and he was saying, look, these guys are used to being catered to. They're used to getting rid of people who they feel aren't, helping him, achieve certain goals, or used to settling things out of court, just throwing money at problems. I don't disagree. Greg Von News says Cowboys would bring their own heated benches to Washington Stadium because it was so trash and outdated. Is that true? It wouldn't surprise me. And Dan Snyder let FedEx Field just run down. It's just disappointing to see the NFL's response here and David Tepper not having the decency to apologize to the fans, to the NFL. I think that speaks to his character, or lack thereof. And it's good to see, it's great to see players in the NFL speak out against this behavior. Jason Kelsey, his brother Travis spoke out as well. It was, to me, that's worse than what Bud Adams did in 2009, throwing a drink at someone. All right, I want to move on for sports. I don't really discuss sports. I really don't discuss sports here on the show, but I wanted to talk about this because it was just I was just appalled by what I saw by an NFL owner throwing a drink at someone. That's a new low. All right, Ricardo 170 says, "Brap, I think it's better that I think it's better if Sony. Hold on, let's see here. Brap, I think is better if Sony waits for 2026. PS5's killing it right now. Why confuse people? PS4 Pro and Xbox One only says look, I mean, there's precedent there, Ricardo. I mean, you got to remember they launched the PS4 Pro, I believe, 3 years after launch. Let me just pull this up. Yeah, the PS4 Pro launched 3 years after the PlayStation. And I remember that was the conversation when we caught wind that Sony was working on releasing a PS4 Pro. And we said, hey, look, this is why are they doing this? It's only 3 years in the generation. We're year 4 into the generation now. And so there's precedent there, Ricardo, where we didn't see any real impact per se to consumers being confused or anything like that. PlayStation 4 went on to sell very well for Sony. So there's some precedent there. I don't think that they are. I don't think this is going to have that kind of knock-on effect that you think it might have. I think it may even have the opposite, where you would imagine they would probably lower the price of the PlayStation 5. And that would actually help drive some additional sales of the base PlayStation 5 to people who really haven't jumped ship yet from either PS4 or whatever platform they're currently gaming on to PS5. Gregor Von Doom says, if a billionaire throws a plastic cup drink at me, I'm showing up that following morning in a full body cast. Von Doom's gonna say I'm suing them. No, Sony has not officially announced a Pro for this year, but that is the rumors, leaks, whatever, that are going around right now. Mario says Brad would totally throw a drink at those who tell him PC is not the best platform. I wouldn't do that. I would not do that. All right, this is a follow-up to a conversation we had here on BRAP yesterday regarding when I discussed the 2 reasons why I think we will see a Nintendo Switch 2 this year. According to, this is an article by VGC. Switch 2 likely to be iteration rather than revolution, predicts analyst. So this is according to Dr. Serkan Toto. He's a CEO of Tokyo-based game industry consultancy Kantan Games. who contributed his forecast for 2024 in GameIndustry.biz's annual analyst predictions feature, which I did read that article today. It's probably something we'll discuss on BRAP next Wednesday. And according to Toto, he's saying that the Switch could launch at $400, $100 higher than the Switch launched at the back in 2017. And there's a chance that his games could adopt a $70 pricing of PS5 and Xbox Series X, which is kind of interesting because they did sell Tears of the Kingdom at $70, and that game sold well. But they haven't sold all of their first-party games at $70. I think, if I recall, I think the Nintendo or Tears of the Kingdom was the only game I think they sold at $70, and some of the other ones were at $60. But look, I mean, Nintendo can do it. Nintendo, the fans will buy. There is just a demand for Nintendo first-party games, and I think people will fork over the money for it. Look, I don't want to see a price increase, but the reality is that the demand's going to drive that. And if the demand is there, and the demand seemingly is there with the way and how much Breath of the Wild sold or Tears of the Kingdom sold, it wouldn't surprise me that Nintendo is going to switch to $70. And I would imagine that's probably going to start a debate amongst people in the gaming community. Wait a minute. Like, look at these games. Like, these games aren't big AAA blockbuster, graphically intensive games, and they're charging you $70. It's going to be an interesting conversation, but that's what Circa and Toto is predicting could be happening here, that they're going to adopt the $70 pricing strategy of PS5 and Xbox Series consoles. He also goes on to say that the time is finally here for a Switch successor. Even though I can say Pro model actually did exist and certain developers were already working with a dev kit, I believe the next hardware will drop in 2024 for $400. There's a high chance that games will cost more too at $70, which you just mentioned. According to Toto, the Nintendo's next console will again have a portable functionality. I don't think anyone should be surprised by that. I think that's been part of the allure and success of the Nintendo Switch, being able to dock it, play it on your TV, and then also take it on the go. I mean, they essentially cannibalized their portable Nintendo DS business by creating the Switch and the console business and just combining the functionality of those two devices into one device. He also says the next system is also likely to be an iteration rather than a revolution. Nintendo might add some bells and whistles to the device, but it will be similar to the current Switch. That doesn't surprise me. It doesn't surprise me that it's going to be more of an iteration than a revolution. That they're just going to build upon the Nintendo Switch by adding a couple new things, like he says, bells and whistles to the device. But I don't think we'll see this drastic increase. I don't think you'll see the Nintendo Switch doing machine learning or anything like that. So that actually doesn't surprise me. He also goes on to say, and because there's Pokemon, and Pokemon is associated with handheld gaming, there's no way on earth Nintendo will drop the portability feature for the next big thing. Yeah, I don't disagree. I mean, that is a huge seller for them. And I mentioned this last year, or not, I mentioned this yesterday too, and this is one of the reasons why I said Nintendo will release a new Switch in 2024. Nintendo's last fiscal year, Switch sales declined by 22% compared to the previous year. And even if it reaches its current target of 15 million for this year, that's going to represent a further decline of 16.5%. So they're at that point. They're at the point in the console generation where there's so much market saturation of Nintendo Switch consoles that you're starting to see a decline now. Like I said, the way to offset that is releasing new hardware. I mean, the Switch is going into year 7 now of its existence. So that's the latest update, Nintendo Switch, in terms of the Nintendo Switch 2. And just a follow-up to what we discussed yesterday here on BRAP, on the BRAP rant. So how does everyone feel? I'm going to ask the live chat here. How do you all feel about $70 Nintendo games? Look, I was okay with Breath of the Wild. Not Breath. I keep saying Breath of the Wild. Tears of the Kingdom. I was okay with Tears of the Kingdom at 70. I don't know how I would feel about Mario Kart at 70, though. Abby says 400 USD is $600 in Canadian currency. Yeah, you guys pay a lot of money for hardware and video games up there. Devil Shooter says, I feel like 70 is the new standard. Craig Renew says $70 for a game is a steal considering what they did with cardboard. Whatever happened to the cardboard, by the way? Are they still making that? It was innovative, creative. Yeah, I agree, D Nice. Well, Nintendo will not use cutting edge technology. That's why as they described an new iterative version of the Switch. I totally agree with that. All right, so the Steam Awards, the 2023 Steam Awards have come out. And Starfield actually won Most Innovative Game, which I'm surprised because, or Most Innovative Gameplay on the 2023 Steam Awards. I got to say, I'm surprised by that because I don't see how that game's innovative in terms of gameplay. It very much is, at least with my playthrough, it was very much in line with other Bethesda games. I didn't see much evolution or innovation in terms of the gameplay. But now there's reports out there that the Steam users may be trolling Starfield with most of Innovative Gameplay Award. And Paul Tassi wrote an article today on Forbes. This article came out at 8:27 a.m. today. And he's saying that he's basically saying that look, and Paul Cassie loves Starfield. He's a big, he reviewed Star. I think he may have gave it 100. And he goes, look, even as an ardent Starfield defender, which has gotten me a lot of flack, the category here, most innovative gameplay, is not one I can say Starfield deserves to win. And I don't disagree with him. I don't see that either. I think, and Paul says, I think it does some of its core concepts well. Its shooting is drastically improved from past Bethesda games, for instance. But everything else, question mark. The single biggest complaint about the game is that it's derivative of past Bethesda games to the point where it feels dated. We had this discussion yesterday on BRAP, the BRAP rant, where I said one of my complaints was that it feels the design, the overall game design of Starfield feels dated. You know, and he also goes on to say that, you know, outside of that, the game, that the game it really hasn't been well received since its launch on Steam by the Steam users. If you look at the Steam user reviews, and we talked about that yesterday, I think it's like at 64%, 67% on the Steam reviews. He thinks that he just doesn't think that the math adds up per se with what you're seeing in the Steam reviews, and then that game being nominated for most innovative gameplay. So Paul's putting this idea. He's saying, hey, I'm willing to bet there's a significant amount of troll votes contributed to the total all the same. Bethesda and Microsoft can celebrate this award, but as you might expect, they're getting positively wrecked in the comments and quote tweets. So, I mean, look, it's when I saw Starfield and I think it was Bethesda who actually said, hey, congratulations to the team. We won, best innovative gameplay award on this, the Steam Awards. I was, I was shocked just given the user reviews on Steam, given my own experience of playing Starfield to completion. I just don't see the innovative gameplay there for the reasons that Paul mentioned. It very much is a Bethesda game, and like I said yesterday. Again, it's not a terrible game. It's not a great game. I think it's a good game, but I think it's a Bethesda game, and to me, the design of that game feels very antiquated. T. Harris says, BRAP, the award is proof of an Xbox tax refund. That's funny. Hey, what's up, Otacon Oslet? Great to see you, sir. Striker says, but BRAP don't people love picking up 50 cups of sandwich? Hey, some people do. Some people actually do really enjoy that. That's not my bag. That's not something that I like to do. Yeah, and Red Dead 2 got labor of love. That was the other thing, too, out of the Steam Awards. Like, I was kind of like, wait, Red Dead 2 got labor of love? Like, to me, that would have been like maybe a Cyberpunk 2077. I got to pull up the other Steam winners here. And by the way, Baldur's Gate 3, as it should, did lead the 2023 Steam Awards. So Baldur's Gate 3 was Game of the Year, as it should be. As many of you know, I'm heavily biased towards Baldur's Gate 3. It's the best game that I've played this generation. Michael Moridian says these rewards or awards need to be reassessed. Yeah, the Red Dead 1, Red Dead Redemption 2, and the Starfield ones are kind of raised eyebrows for me. But I'm going to read the list of winners here. Game of the Year, Baldur's Gate 3. That is spot on. In my opinion, that's correct. Baldur's Gate 3. VR Game of the Year, Labyrinth. I haven't played that. Labor of Love, Red Dead Redemption 2. That was the one that's kind of also raised eyebrows for me. Best game on Steam Deck, Hogwarts Legacy. Better with Friends, Lethal Company. Outstanding visual style, Atomic Heart. I could see that with outstanding visual style, Atomic Heart. Most innovative gameplay, Starfield. That's the other one that raises eyebrows. Best game you suck at, Sifu. Best soundtrack, The Last of Us Part 1. Outstanding story-rich game, Baldur's Gate 3. So, I mean, I mostly agree with the winners here. Again, the ones that raise an eyebrow for me are Red Dead Redemption 2 under Labor of Love and Starfield, most innovative gameplay. So Paul is putting out this in his article. He's not saying that he thinks that this could be a result of trolling, but who knows? Who knows? Gregor Von Doom says Cyberpunk fixing their game isn't a labor of love; it's just labor. It's a great point. By the way, you've if you listen to the show, you've heard me talk about layoffs. I mean, there was a lot of hoopla prior to the holidays about the ransomware attack of Insomniac and what resulted, the stolen information that was released about potential layoffs at PlayStation, and people saying PlayStation's in trouble and Sony's in trouble. And I talked about this on Crossfire too, where I said, there's been layoffs just across the board. Companies are looking at focusing more on efficiency at the moment. And obviously that's to help drive down cost. But, Sony isn't the only one impacted by the layoffs that we've seen. They're not the only company. They're not an anomaly. I don't see anything there that would lead me to believe that, oh my God, they're in trouble, the way people were spinning that. And one of the things I talked about was layoffs that we saw in big tech, that we didn't have the attitude or perspective that Google was in trouble, or that Microsoft was in trouble because they laid off 10,000 employees, or that Amazon was in trouble, or that the tech sector, for that matter, was in trouble. Because I did see a report this morning as I get market updates on competitors for the company that I work for and the labor market. And in tech, the technology sector eliminated 230,000 jobs. 230,000 jobs the year 2023. 230,000 jobs year 2023. So just food for thought. Geez, I'm still thinking about the Nintendo $70 the prospect of paying $70 for Nintendo games. I don't know. Look, I happily opened up my wallet for Tears of the Kingdom, but that was a massive, that was a pretty big game, an open world RPG, a lot of content. I put a lot of hours into it. I don't know about like a Mario side scroller at $70. I just don't know. Who knows? And maybe they continue that pricing, that tiered pricing, where they have maybe smaller titles at $60 and then some of the larger marquee titles at $70. Maybe that's something they do. So somebody in the chat yesterday asked, did I think that it made sense for Xbox to release a console in 2026? And Digital Foundry had a great video, their last video, on this topic, this roadmap, if you will, of what Microsoft might do. And we had the Richard Ledbetter discuss the leaked documents that came out of the Microsoft ABK hearing and this past summer, and showed how long that roadmap is to develop hardware, and seemed to think that maybe a 2-year roadmap would be tough, not impossible, but tough to be able to get a hardware out, to cut 2 years out of the development of new hardware, to be able to pivot that quickly. Again, he didn't say it was impossible, but that it would be hard, and that maybe if they did do that, it'd make more sense for them to for the new Xbox in 2026, if this is true, to kind of follow along the path of PC. So have different feature sets like ML and things like that. So it was an very interesting conversation, podcast on Digital Foundry. Michael wants to know what kind of graphics upgrade will they shoot for BRAP on the Switch to PS4 Pro? I think you mean PS5 Pro. Thank you, Capono. Appreciate the birthday wishes. Who knows with Nintendo? I think we'll get some kind of upgrade, obviously, but I don't think there's going to be a huge upgrade. Like I think the analyst said, this is kind of an iterative. It's going to be an iterative console for them. It's not. There'll be some new bells and whistles, but I don't think we'll see like a dramatic leap. I think we'll see some. Would imagine we'll see some improvement and fidelity and things like that, but I don't expect a major graphical leap for the next Nintendo Switch. And I think the PS5 Pro will be able to do things, higher FPS at higher resolution, things like that. So, the interesting thing about, Xbox is the Xbox approach to video games. I was thinking about what they were discussing on Digital Foundry, though, and Logic mentioned that now that, because the roadmaps for PlayStation and Microsoft were leaked during this whole trial. And one of the things that Logic had mentioned on BRAP and what he had mentioned to me, again, I was trying to get him on to this afternoon to discuss this a little more in depth, but he mentioned that he wouldn't be surprised if one of the two kind of jumped the gun in releasing new hardware. Because one of the questions I had in my mind, well, does it really make sense for Xbox to release new console hardware in 2026 when it seems like they have these, Microsoft has this issue of duality, these two products that are competing, I guess, maybe against each other. Like, it's like, do we want to sell hardware? Do we want to sell subscriptions? And I'm leaning towards them wanting to push Game Pass, like Slomo has said many times on this show, that Game Pass is the platform now. It's not necessarily the Xbox hardware that Microsoft is looking to bring software to wherever the gamers are, and not necessarily trying to entice gamers to buy hardware to play Xbox software. And so that was kind of the piece that's where I was asking the question, well, why would this make sense? Why would they do this in 2026? And, one of the things that Logic and I were discussing, and I thought this was a great point by Logic, because I asked him, I said, it doesn't make sense to me. Like you're gonna, because I did see some people on Twitter or X or whatever say that, oh, well, an Xbox releasing a 2026 console is like a jump on Sony PlayStation like they did with the 360 generation. But this is a different Microsoft, though, than the 360 generation. I think John Linneman mentioned this with the Xbox 360. He's like, he looks at the portfolio, the library of content there. Microsoft was super aggressive in carving out and getting a lot of exclusive content. Think about some of the games that came to the 360. I mean, they got the creator of Final Fantasy to make two exclusives for the Blue Dragon and Mistwalker, who's the developer, Blue Dragon and Lost Odyssey. They launched Gears. They got that as exclusive. They landed Mass Effect as an exclusive, the first Mass Effect. They were very aggressive in getting these titles, these compelling titles that would move people to the platform. And so when people say this is going to be like the 360 generation, I'm not so sure, because in the 360 generation too, the developers were developing games specifically for the 360. I'm sure there was some cross-pollination of games, but they really were making games for the 360. Think about the Ghost Recon game that launched on the 360, which looked incredible at the time. I remember seeing that for the first time. I was blown away. And I'm not so sure that is going to be the case this generation. And one of the things that John Lemon brought up, which I thought was, which I agree with him on this point, was that the cost of software development being increasing so much, that how much are third-party developers really going to develop software that really takes advantage of a new Xbox in 2026? And this is something, by the way, we're going to, BRAP next week, we'll discuss this a little more in depth too, because I do want to get the rest of the panel's thoughts on this, and get Logic to kind of discuss this as well, because as I mentioned, I was trying to get him on the show this afternoon, and unfortunately he couldn't make it. I thought we had a really good. He brought some really interesting points in the conversation that we had earlier today about potential Xbox in 2026, but this is different than 360 generation. I see a lot of people saying, "Oh, this is going to be like the 360 generation. They're going to get the lead, and this could potentially, drive more market share." And look, I don't know if a new 2026 a new Xbox in 2026 is going to turn the tide for Microsoft. Again, I think the biggest issue they've had this generation. And I thought coming into this generation, I've said this before in the show, I think coming into this generation, they were in a much better position than the Xbox One. And now their hardware sales are starting to trail behind the Xbox One. We're seeing negative declines in year-over-year hardware sales, which, 4 years into the generation isn't what you see typically. It's usually the reverse. You don't start seeing those declines until you get to the tail end of the generation, and we're already seeing declines in demand for Xbox Series hardware. And again, which is kind of interesting because, if you think about the value proposition of Game Pass, and if you think of the value proposition of the Xbox Series S, you would imagine that there would have probably been a little more demand for the Xbox consoles, and that just hasn't been the case. And I've said this on the show, that's the one thing that's going to surprise me this generation. I expected them to be more competitive this generation than last gen. So I don't know if a new console in 2026 is really going to shift, tip the demand in their favor, or going to increase demand. What I do think it will do, and what Logic and I discussed earlier today, is that it is probably more so for the hardcore fan to kind of placate them and get them to buy new hardware, but more lip service, if you will, to the hardcore base. But I don't see this. I don't see this really being a differentiator in the marketplace the way the 360 was, because of the things I just mentioned with third-party developers. Presumably, Microsoft would probably make games that do take advantage of the hardware. But again, they're going to have to scale their games for the lowest common denominators. And I know people are going to be like, "Oh, well, PC does it." Okay, well, I understand that, but as the late great Optimus Code said, you can't scale design. You can scale resolution and graphics, but you can't scale design. And in Sony, to an extent, and I think where they've excelled with PlayStation 5 and in the PlayStation 4, PlayStation 3 with first party, is they've kind of set the blueprint of how to design games, first party games, to specifically take advantage of the hardware and how to present those games to consumers. I think that's where Sony's excelled. I think that's where Microsoft has maybe lacked a little bit this generation. Having those two hardware SKUs, we really haven't seen a lot of games take advantage of the full power of the Series X, be designed specifically for the Series X. That's one of the things that I would have loved to see, and maybe that still happens. But again, I just don't see the third-party developers with the other SKUs that they have to develop for doing what third-party developers did with the 360, where they were just developing games that, yes, rest in peace, Optimus Code. Thank you, Dowd Incline. It's interesting. I actually just an old podcast came up, old BRAP show 3 years ago, and we had Optimus Code come on, and just listening to him speak about the importance of talent and resources in game development, and he was so right, and him discussing how design doesn't scale. Yes, I mean graphics and performance will scale, but design does not scale when you have design for multiple SKUs. So it's the one thing that Microsoft has in its favor in terms of being able to develop multiple SKUs is that they're using DirectX, and so they can scale things probably much easier than I would imagine maybe PlayStation can, because they're using I think a form of OpenGL, I think it is. But But what's it? But again, my question and what I was coming back to with Game Logic today was like, I said Logic, it doesn't make sense to me. From like, why would they release a new console? The console isn't really their, what they're pushing per se. I mean, we hear that all the time when people say, oh, they're not really, they don't really care about hardware sales. I think they do to an extent. I think anytime you're spending money on hardware, manufacturing for hardware, you do care about, that platform and selling numbers that make sense for the business. And hopefully drive money for the business. But also, I always said, every Xbox sold is a potential Game Pass subscription sold. So, but again, it's kind of interesting. Like there's this duality to Microsoft and almost these competing businesses. And, you hear kind of different things from them. And, you hear the group that wants to put software everywhere. And then you hear the group that says, consoles are still important to us. So it's almost like with Microsoft, well, which one is it? And how can those two things coexist? And again, that kind of begs the question of, does it make sense for Xbox to release a new console in 2026? One thing, and again, this is based on the conversation I had with Logic today. As we were discussing this, one of the things I do agree with him is that that again, this is kind of a kind of placate the hardcore Xbox fans, kind of similar to what they did with the series, the Xbox One X. Remember, they released that and really didn't really take advantage of the power of the One X per se. But to do that, and if now that we have these leaked roadmaps, and if PlayStation 5 does release a PlayStation Pro console, and then do what they did last generation when they released the PlayStation 4 Pro and drop the price of the PlayStation 5 $100, well, that puts a lot of pressure on Xbox hardware. If you think about it for a second, like, you're now going to release, if Sony again does what they did with the PlayStation 4 Pro, launching it at $499, which was the launch price of the PlayStation 4 base model. They released the PlayStation 4 Pro at $499 or $399 at the time, and then they reduced the cost of the base PlayStation 4 by $100. They do the same here. They launched the PlayStation 5 Pro at $499. And now the PlayStation 5 base consoles are, $350. Or I'm sorry, if they're now $399, that would imagine that puts more pressure on Xbox in terms of hardware sales. And so a 2026 iterative release would probably alleviate some of that pressure, I would imagine. So again, I'm still like Component says, imagine this generation if it was just Series X and PS5. Yeah, I mean, look, I think maybe we would have seen I don't know, maybe things would have fared better for Microsoft. Maybe who knows, right? I know that I would have loved to see them focus on games that took advantage of the architecture, the hardware power, the horsepower of the Series X. And that was one of my disappointments with the Series X, is that they didn't they talked about the power, and then they seemingly didn't really design games that really took advantage of that power to kind of push the design of their first party content forward, or in a way that really compelled gamers to adopt their platform. So we'll talk about this more next week on next week's BRAP, next Wednesday's BRAP at 9 p.m. Eastern time. We'll have Logic on and we'll talk about it a little bit more. But I thought he brought up some great points into the why and why they would be doing this. The other interesting thing is that came about of the Digital Foundry podcast. They were discussing this idea of maybe Xbox going all digital with their hardware. And John Linneman, he actually brought up a great point. I didn't even think about this until he brought it up. And he said, if Xbox was to release a digital-only console, next generation, they would basically be removing themselves from physical retail. They would basically giving the competition all the shelf space, physical retail, Amazon, GameStop. And I know people are going to say, well, nah, look, physical sales don't matter. People don't buy physical. I understand that. Majority of people are buying digital now, but they're still physical. People are still buying games on Amazon. And now you would only be able to purchase those digital games where? And maybe that's what Microsoft wants to do, to drive people to their store. But if I would find it would seem, it just seems odd that they would just forfeit that to the competition, where the competition be the only would have the only gaming console presence at physical retail. So I want to ask the live chat this question: What do you all think about an new Xbox console, an iterative Xbox console? This would be an iterative console releasing in 2026. You think it makes sense for Microsoft to do it? And I don't think them releasing a 2026 console is going to have the same impact that it did on the 360. I just don't think there's going to be enough developers who now have to develop for an additional SKU on top of the 3 SKUs, or the Xbox 2026 console, 2 other SKUs for the Xbox, and 2 SKUs for PlayStation. You look at 5 different SKUs, platforms that they have to develop for. I don't think it's going to necessarily move the needle for them. I think it's going to be great for their hardcore install base. They'll buy it. But I don't think it's going to have that 360 effect, for the reasons I just mentioned about, third party. And even first party, I just don't see them taking advantage of, designing games specifically for their hardware. It's just going to scale across 3 different platforms, very similar to PC. Devil Shoes says, I buy physical and will keep doing so till I'm no longer able to, or grow PC. Well, PC's all digital. Seafresh says, makes no sense. Michael Mordan says, nope, they're struggling to sell consoles now with steep price cuts. Capone said, still can't believe Phil said making great games won't bring people to Xbox. That is, Capone, that's a great point. I was shocked. I was shocked that he said that. But I don't. I mean that. I mean he isn't wrong. I mean, they've had some good content. I mean, you look at Starfield. I mean, Starfield really did move the needle for Xbox hardware. Simwan says, it would make sense for them, but I don't know how well it would work out for them. People are already picking a more expensive PS5 over an Xbox that's nearly $150 cheaper. Yeah, I think if anything, it's a double down to their hardcore fan base that, hey, we're still in it in the long haul for hardware. But I don't think that is, like I said this before, I think there's this duality with them of these competing platforms, hardware, and we want to bring our software everywhere else in Game Pass. And I think the priority is getting their software to as many people as they can, without relying on the hardware. I hate to use the word lip service, but I feel like this is lip service, a new console for their hardcore. Devil says, I'm willing to bet most true Xbox fans are already on PC. I don't know about that. I'm sure there's been like me. I mean, I had an Xbox console. This is the first time in the 20 plus years that I've been in the Xbox ecosystem. And for those who don't know, I was an Xbox Live beta tester. Jay goes, Xbox Live. This is the first time I haven't owned an Xbox console. I don't need to. because I have PC. I have a PC, so I'm sure. I'm sure there's some people that have migrated to PC. Yeah, and this is kind of where I was questioning the a new Xbox in 2026. Michael, you brought up the point. Phil Spencer saying that they're not in the business to out console PlayStation, so why continue making consoles then? But the answer to that question is because they still have a dedicated fan base group of consumers that play console. I don't think they're going to push those individuals to go elsewhere. Jago 6, Microsoft's a software company by default, so they go the software digital market like they have done with Windows and Office. Yeah, I get that. The only thing is that them going fully, at least with Microsoft Windows and Office, I mean, there's no real competitor in that space. There's a big competitor in the console space, the gaming space at their end. And so they would be leaving that particular platform owner. They would have retail to themselves, basically. Sony would. And Nintendo. Yeah, I don't. Chrisia, what are you saying? Wow, they reported 30 million PS5 online. What, the 20 million are scalpers? What is that? What are you talking about? What are you referring to, Chrisia? Is that a news story? Is that something that's been corroborated? Like, what are you referring to? Do you have a link? Jeff P. Gaming says, good or okay content isn't the same as great content. You need those killer apps. Starfield and it. Yeah, I mean, look, I don't disagree with that. I mean, that's, there's the killer apps are things that drive people to engage with video games with a particular platform. And that's not just video games. You look at HBO. Why do people subscribe to HBO? Yeah, Capone, I don't disagree. I think there's, and I think Digital Foundry mentioned that AI and ML piece, new consoles. Michael says, Michael Morgan says, I think they think of their consoles in an impediment to their strategy. They want their console gamers on PC. Yeah, I mean, even if they did want their console gamers on PC, I don't think that's a proposition that is going to be attractive to many of their consumers who buy Xbox consoles. Jago 6, I mean, they also have PC, Surface, but the market is dominated by Dell, HP. Yeah, same applies to the consoles dominated by Nintendo, Sony, but they still make. Yeah, no, I don't disagree with that, Jago 6, and that's kind of what I was alluding to. Like even with Surface, they kind of scaled back there. They kind of did this song and dance with Windows phones when they were kind of pivoting away from Windows Phone. So I think it's more, and I hate to use the word lip service, but I think it's more that and placating their hardcore fans by offering hardware still, or console hardware. But I don't think a much to what I see or have heard certain Xbox centric podcasters when they're like, oh, it's gonna be like the 360 generation. I'm like, probably not, because the 360 generation you had third party developers, you had Microsoft really pushing the hardware, and that's not the case. That's not where we are today. That's much different than it was in the 360 gen. Dower Nicholas says, I think a new Xbox in 2026 is still going to get outsold by Switch 2 and the vanilla PS5. Probably. I mean, that wouldn't surprise me. I would imagine their biggest I think the biggest growth of the business for Microsoft is going to be on the publishing side, and I think that should be obvious based on the acquisition of ABK and how many units Call of Duty sells annually. It's going to be interesting to see what the knock-on effect of ABK is going to be to Game Pass subscriptions. Abby says the hardcore PS Finder was never going to buy Xbox anyways. Why does it matter if the new Xbox comes in 2026? Well, again, I don't think they're, I think obviously if they could get somebody to jump over from the PS5 into their ecosystem, they would certainly welcome that. But I don't think that's their motivation per se. Yeah, Jacob says it's way to their ecosystem now with ABK. They just added mobile, which is huge, way large. Yeah, mobile's going to be huge for them. That's what I'm saying. I think the biggest growth of them is just going to be the revenue piece from publishing. Like you look at what Candy Crush does in terms of revenues on mobile, it's huge. Look, as someone who primarily games on PC, as somebody who's traditionally been a console gamer, to me, the direction that Xbox is going is much different than how than when I got into the Xbox ecosystem when it was more console centric. And look, and I get it. I understand the shift. They needed to do something that was different to drive their business, to make money, and I get that. I think Phil in that interview, we go back to the Kind of Funny interview, he was very telling. We're not going to out-counsel Sony. Well, if you can't out-counsel Sony, then what's the next step? You need to shift your strategy and try to carve out your own piece of the pie. And I said this on yesterday's show too. I mean, despite their shift in strategy, I will say this: there are some things that they're doing, Microsoft or Xbox, that they're doing that has me interested, especially this year, 2024. And I mentioned this yesterday's show, the potential releases of 2024, Hellblade 2, Avowed potentially coming in 2024. There's some titles that they've announced that I'm interested in hearing more about, learning more about, and hopefully we get some more insight into what Rare's working on. There is a rumor by an insider that the new Banjo-Kazooie has been greenlit, so I'm definitely interested in that. Jago6 says, for a family, which I have, Xbox is the best way to go. More economical. Game costs a lot when buy for a family of kids. Yeah, no, I can certainly see that. Everyone is going to base consumers are going to base their purchasing decisions based on their socioeconomic status. So I get that. But understand, Jago, that is specific to your use case. And I want to make that clear, because I think sometimes people take their use cases and they apply it to the rest of the market, and that's not always the case. Like, what your individual use case is as a consumer doesn't always necessarily apply to the rest of the consumer market. Like what you just described, Jago6, while I completely understand and I agree with, my situation is vastly different. I don't look at, Xbox as being more economical. My kids have, access to, Xbox, PlayStation 5, They have Nintendo Switches, they have Game Boys, they have PCs. So I mean, and what's interesting with my kids is they have, when I did have Game Pass Ultimate, they were playing, they were utilizing it in some instances, but then I found them gravitating more towards PlayStation 5 for some reason. And I've kept the PlayStation 5 subscription, the PlayStation Plus subscription, because that particular subscription tends to have Japanese type or JRPGs or different Japanese titles that I couldn't find on Xbox. Abdi, I'm not so sure. You said that Xbox and Sony have not moved. Yeah. Okay, I see what you're saying. Yeah, no, they haven't. Yeah, clearly, just looking at the 50 million consoles that PlayStation 5 has sold. Yeah, I mean they haven't moved all of their, install base over to PS5, which is why I think if and I said this earlier, if the PlayStation 5 Pro comes along and it retails at $499, and now Sony decreases the price of the base PlayStation 5 by $100, which they did last generation with the PS4 Pro and the base PS4, that could certainly entice people who are on PS4 still to make that jump. Because that tends to happen to in the ecosystem. The early adapters are always the hardcore, and then as the console generation gets, the console generation moves along, then they would certainly, you see console prices drop, and you see, more the casual market start purchasing consoles. Jago says, my kids have gravitated towards more PC-centric gaming. That's awesome, by the way. They're doing more PC gaming. Way more games, Steam. Yeah, the Steam's got a plethora of games. The Steam sale is just incredible, by the way. That's why, for me, that's why if I'm not engaged in a subscription service, I won't keep subscribing to it, because being on PC, the Steam sales, I can pick up so much content on the cheap. Yeah, I picked up Alan Wake 2 for like $24 on the Epic Store. Hey, Jago, what PC games are your kids playing right now? There's a lot of content on PC. This Steam sale's insane. By the way, if you haven't, if you like Baldur's Gate 3, big fan of Larian Studios, and you haven't played Divinity Original Sin 2, Divinity Original Sin 2 is on sale on Steam right now for $13. Oh, and Devil Shooter said Epic is giving away Plague's Tale right now for free. They've been giving a game away free for the last week or so, for the past week. Yeah, Plague's Tale is good. Is it Requiem? Which Plague's Tale is it? Devil Shooter. I can look it up real quick too. Actually, Plague's Tale is really good. Alicia. Although Hugo's a little annoying. We kind of make fun of him on Crossfire. We're like, Alicia, I'm hungry. Alicia, feed me. Alicia, the rats are getting me. Alicia. All right, let's see here. Which Plague's Tale is free right now? Oh my God, there's so many great games right now. Yeah, Alan Wake 2 is $39, and you add the Epic 33% coupon, and it brings it down like $24. Where's the free game? I don't see the free. What the heck's the free game here on Steam or on Epic? Oh, it's a Plague's Tale Innocence. Okay, so it's the first one. What a great game. Yeah, Scott Dove says Plague's Tale is On PlayStation Plus for free. Yeah, it is. That's right. Yeah, it's one of the games free this month. Capono says next month we get hardware. Horizon. I'm sorry, Horizon Forbidden West on PC. Excited to dive deep into that one. I have yet to buy a. That's not true. I actually picked up God of War 2018 on PC, but I really played much of the other Sony first party releases on PC. I just don't have any. I probably would have picked up The Last of Us Part 1 on PC if I hadn't played the remake that was released on PS5. So I'm on the fence with Horizon Forbidden West. Maybe that's the one that I get. But I put so much time in the last one, I don't know if I want to go back to it. Yeah, I need to get Liza. I need to get to Liza P too. D nice. Eric Cuts has had a lot of positive things to say about it. And she plays a lot of Souls games. She's had a lot of positive things to say about that. He says A Plague's Tale Requiem is on PlayStation Plus, a monthly game. Yeah, I think that was I forgot who said that earlier in the chat. Sorry, guys. I'm just reading. I'm reading through the chat here. I want to make sure I didn't miss anything. PlayStation games on PCs for those who don't have a PlayStation should be a full price. Yeah, I think there's people out there too, Captain Bly, that would that own PlayStations that probably double dip and play the PC versions as well. All right. Also, one other news I wanted to talk about: CD Projekt Red has come out and said they're uninterested in being acquired. Now, there's been a lot of rumors over the last couple of years that maybe CD Projekt Red would get acquired. Maybe it was Sony who was going to acquire them. So this, according to an interview of VGC with Adam, I'm going to butcher his last name here, Kinsiski, who transitioned from CEO to Chief Strategy Officer as of January 1st of this year. Kinsiski said, "We have worked our whole lives to get into position to get to the position we have now, and we believe that in a few years we will be even bigger and stronger. We have ambitious plans. We are passionate about what we do. We value our independence." So that's his. He also said that the firm isn't planning to purchase any firm at the time, but he did say, of course, we're open to ideas that could accelerate the implementation of our strategy. So they're not looking to be bought, but they would be open to acquiring others that would help accelerate some of their internal strategies. Yeah, Capono. No 46-year-old men in here calling me a hypocrite today, which was crazy. It's so ridiculous. Yeah, I don't want to see any large publishers or talented developers being bought by billion-dollar companies or even Sony for that matter. I don't want to see consolidation in the industry. You've heard me say this a lot last year in 2023. I don't think mass consolidation is good for consumers. I don't think it's good for the industry. I don't know, Sam. It was an interview, so I don't know. I don't know. Let me look at this real quick. I don't know if it was they were getting a lot of inquiries. It was just a question that came up. Yeah, so it looks like this was a question to address rumors that. So Sam, this was he was the chief strategy officer, Adam Kinski, was addressing rumors that CD Projekt Red was looking to be acquired, and he's like, "Look, these are just rumors. We've always had a clear position supported by the regulations included in the statute, and hey, we're not interested in being included in any larger entity." Yeah, they may not be interested, but if someone drops that bag, we may have another conversation. There could be another conversation. But I don't want to see them being acquired. I don't want to see any other large publishers taken off the block, being acquired by any large entity in gaming. As I said last year, I don't think mass consolidation is beneficial to consumers. So Sam, he was just addressing rumors about them wanting to be acquired. All right, so I'm going to wrap up this rant. I want to give a big thank you to everyone who joined me this afternoon. And this is, again, very impromptu, so I appreciate it. Appreciate everyone joining me for my birthday lunch rant. No BRAP tonight, as it's my birthday. I'll be out celebrating my birthday this evening. But thank you, everyone, for coming out and hanging out with me this afternoon. Really appreciate the support, as always. And we'll be back again next next Wednesday at 9 p.m. Eastern time. So if you haven't done so already, give me a thank you, Devil Shooter. Appreciate it. Thank you, Michael. Appreciate it. Thank you, Captain Ply. Thank you, Sam Walton, for the birthday wishes. If you haven't done so already, please follow me on Twitter or X at BRAP_podcast. Who knows? I may do another lunch rant tomorrow. That could be possible. I've actually enjoyed doing these afternoon rants and just chatting it up with the live chat and just discussing some news stories and things like that are out there about video games. But thank you, Jeff B. Gaming. Give me a follow at _BRAP podcast if you're new. Do me a favor, hit that like button. We have like 60 people here watching. Please hit that like button if you haven't done so already. Subscribe, hit the bell notifications so you're alerted when we go live. And again, we'll be back next Wednesday at 9 p.m. Eastern time for our regularly scheduled BRAP. And who knows, I may do a BRAP rant. Lunchtime BRAP rant tomorrow. We'll definitely do one on Friday, though, because I'm actually off on Friday. So I'll be doing a BRAP rant for sure on Friday. But thank you, everyone. Enjoy the rest of the day. We'll catch you next time.